It's a sad day for the world of cricket, not just for the world of cricket, but world of sports. A day that started with the unfortunate news of the demise of Lord Marsh, another great former Australian great. But it was an important day for Australia. A test match in Pakistan began. There were some really good vibes on the ground as Australia played that match. We, of course, had more cricket action throughout the day. But as soon as we thought that all of cricket on the day was done, we were dealt with a huge blow. Uh, Former Australia leg spinner Shane Warne is no more, passed away at the age of 52. And it, it really was something that was too hard to process for the initial few minutes when we just got to read that text, that tweet that emerged. That's how I firstly got to know of the unfortunate news. And I've been joined by my colleague here, Cricket News senior editor Abhishek Mukherjee, who has time and often talked about cricketing greats with me. And of course, Abhishek, when we do write and the day when they are going to write the definitive version of the story of cricket, this is a name which shall be inked in gold, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the greatest leg spinner of all time. There be no doubt about this. Absolutely no doubt about this. If you pick an all-time world 11, Warne will probably be an obvious choice.
And not just one of the greatest leg spinners ever there, but for so many, one of the first images that they saw of the game. It was really an introduction to the game itself, and not just for us who probably grew up in an era when he was playing, but even for kids now, when he had retired so long back. One of the first images probably that they see of the game, and one of the more incredible images that they see of the game, is his bowling.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of spin he could generate from that run up. I mean, I don't know where to begin. The drift, then there was the flipper. I mean, I don't even know where to start. And he often said that he, apart from doing those things with the ball, he often made the batters believe that he was always up to something. So he also played on their minds. I mean, sometimes with sledging, but sometimes the Warne aura stuck, and he was often. He was often vocal about that. So I mean, one of his one quote I remember. This is not verbatim. That part of the art of bowling spin is to make the batsman think that something special is happening when it is not. Warne was special, but even his ordinary balls were special because the batter always kept thinking that this can be something special. Even if there was no turn, they played for the turn. Even if it was a perfectly harmless ball and they read it well, it might have been a loose ball. They just read it right and played it well, played it confidently, middled it. It always played on the back of their minds that the next ball may be something special, and this was a trap. So that was the kind of impact he had. I know there will be some who will keep talking about his record against India, but again, every cricketer had some weakness or the other if you look carefully at their career records. Nobody has a perfect record. So this is a loss impossible to put into words. We shall go through the moments one by one, but as many as we can remember. But yeah,
just the void that has been left in our sport today is tough to put in words, and we are going to try and remember the legend of Shane Warne today, and try and remember him for all the great moments that he gave us. And perhaps, I think one of the few bowlers who had two deliveries that were worthy of being called as bowler of the century in two different centuries.
Yeah, and you mentioned Void during the 2013 Ashes. Australia was struggling in England, and then Warne was a commentator. And then during one of the matches, during a lunch interval, they got Warne to bowl, and this showed on the giant screen. And Warne actually bowled a few balls, and he actually told that I will land this one here, this one, and turn and do this. So every ball landed where he wanted them to, and did exactly what he wanted it to. Remember, this was 2013. His career was done. Even his T20 career was almost done. But he was still probably the best in the world at that point.
Yeah. What were your early memories about Shane Warne, Abhishek? When was the first time that you heard or saw him bowl?
92, his debut. So this was the Doordarshan era. What we saw was a highlights package, a 1 hour highlights package. The test matches were not live. So we saw this blonde leg spinner being thrashed by Shastri Tendulkar on debut. Not very impactful, but soon afterwards, cable TV was still taking off. We didn't have cable TV. We heard that this man had pulled off a remarkable win in Sri Lanka. Again, Sri Lanka was not big. This was pre-1996, so Sri Lanka was not big, but I remember this was that bowler. And then in 93, the ball of the century, I know it was hugely publicized in both Australia and England, and some of that wave reached India as well. I think there was just the ball got shown in one of the news channels. I mean, in some package, I saw the ball. I don't remember exactly where. But yeah, so Warne started to make an impact, and I always wanted to be a wrist spinner. So back in my earlier days, I used to mimic the action of Abdul Qadir, and then I read somewhere that Qadir was. Warne picked up some notes from Qadir. He met Qadir. He was influenced by Qadir heavily. So then I also realized that, okay, this is a much more easier action to imitate. And I started imitating Warne's action. Not that I became anything remotely, I didn't even become a remotely good club cricketer or anything even close to that. But, okay, if you copy someone's action and only that person's action, that is it is a feeling very difficult to describe.
It's sort of tough to explain, but that person stays inside of you for a long time. As a child,
sort of, yes.
Bowler you try to emulate, they stay inside of you as your favorite athlete, or probably someone you respect a lot.
So the first time I saw Warne live was in 1998, Eden Gardens. He was bowling. I got a decent seat, one side. I think it was the clubhouse side. So he was bowling from my end. So I could see all of it. And Warne, remember, does not have a great record in India. Did not have. I can't believe we are discussing him in past tense. So Warne did not have a great record in India. And he bowled from my end. You could see, what he was doing. You could not see how he was. That was not obviously clear because in the Indian openers were both tall, Sidhu and Lakshman. They were defending. They were playing Warne well, but you could see that he was landing everything on spot. The next time I saw him at the Eden Gardens was 3 years later in the historic Dravid Lakshman Test match. We often discuss how Lakshman kept dominating Warne, but The first innings, Warne was all over India. In the brief spell he bowled, he was all over India. And before that, in the first Test match in Bombay, Warne bowled brilliantly. That is the one that Australia won easily.
Yeah.
That is not often discussed. Between these two came the 96, the 99 World Cup semi-final. If you remember, one ball spun across Gibbs.
Yeah.
Kirsten and Gibbs were running away with the match, and one ball. It was not the Mike getting dismissal, but it was a special ball. And then he turned a ball a mile to get Kirsten. And then he got a controversial wicket of Cronier. Cronier promoted himself to counter Warne. It was a doubtful decision, but Warne got Cronier first ball. So that was the impact, because Cronier promoted himself. He backed himself as a good player of spin. That was one reason. The other reason was he wanted to keep Cullinan away from Warne. Remember the impact Warne had on Cullinan. And when you hear of cricketers seeking specialist help, it is usually after being battered by pace, not after being humiliated by a spinner. But Warne that had that impact on Cullinan. And mind you, Cullinan was no ordinary batter. So yeah, so he had that kind of impact. So essentially, I was supporting South Africa that day, but my only thing was Warne should get wicket. And so after Warne retired, 2007, he was gone. And then 2008, the first IPL happened. 5 IPL teams had icon players. The 6th had VVS Lakshman. The 7th had MS Dhoni as captain. But I had no doubt which team I was going to support. And this was slightly. I know. People thought it was a strange choice. My friends thought it was a strange team to back. The same person acting as captain and coach. And there was hardly a big star in the side. Some former cricketers, some unheard of cricketers, and the first title came to Rajasthan. Yeah. So, he just showed up at. I don't know the last time. You remember 2005 Ashes. The Ashes were gone. England were celebrating. But the moment Warne and McGrath walked away from the ground, you could see the reaction at Europe. But the ball of the century happened 14 years before that. 12 years before that. Every time I watch that, what strikes me is this was the first ball he bowled on English soil in Test cricket. So, obviously he wanted to make it special, but wanting to make something special and actually doing it are not the same thing.
True.
So, but yeah, that was the kind of bowler he was. I remind you, Gatting was not an ordinary player of spin. 8 years before that, he demolished India. In India. And the English cricketers were all at sea against Shivaramakrishnan. And Gatting scored a double hundred on that in that series. The series turned on its head. England won the series. Their last series win until that 2012 tour. Gatting was a very good player of spin, but and even in the 1987 World Cup, he did very well. But that ball came out of nowhere.
And it's interesting that even after that delivery, there was a good decade before he bowled the one to Andrew Strauss. And even after knowing that Warne is capable of that, the batter really did not have any answer. Andrew Strauss at that position played almost his actions were almost as clueless as Mike Gettings a decade ago. So that was sort of an amazing thing. It's sort of an unreal achievement to have for one athlete, uh, 10 years apart, more than 10 years
What
apart.
do you do against the ball like that? I mean, I don't even know. Uh, if you watch the replay of the ball, you can just see the extent to which it turned.
True.
And to be fair, getting when getting was facing, he never expected that to happen. Strauss probably knew what can be in store, what is in store. He knew that a ball like that may happen, and he still got bored.
I think it's probably safe to say that that's the closest to what we can call magic in the mortal world. Uh, Perhaps, who knows? But
Yes, yes. If you look at the 1980s, the whole concept was ODI cricket, limited overs cricket, was a fast bowler's game. Spinners were rare. Spin bowling was dying out in limited overs cricket because uh, I mean the whole notion was to see off the new ball and then go after the spinners. Spinners bowled flat. Spinners bowled defensively. The best spinners were the ones who bowled flat. And then one man changed all that. A spinner who would bowl in the slog overs at the death, even the last over. And he would not bowl flat. He would try to take wickets,
yeah,
even in the death overs. And not only try to get wickets, he would get wickets. We talk about a 708 test wickets. His ODI record is incredible.
yeah. Yeah, but even outside of that, I'm kind of reminded of another aspect of his game, which a lot of people have talked about before. You mentioned Rajasthan Royals, and I've heard accounts from many of Australian cricket pundits that perhaps one of Australia's greatest captain who didn't get to captain the side.
I I never think I don't think Australian Cricket Australia has come out with an official explanation for this, but I think his off the field life played a role in this. There's no official explanation, but there's no doubt about this. I mean, Warne made things happen for Rajasthan Royals. That is what we saw. He made inspired changes. I mean, it's T20 cricket. You have to hit from the top. You have to hit from the start. Would you really experiment with Swapnil Asnotkar? You understand? Shane Watson's career was going nowhere. He just brought him back.
True, and those initial years with Rajasthan Royals really changed the perspective around Shane Watson as a T20 all-rounder.
Yes,
And look where Australia went with him after, in terms of his
yes.
role in the Australian lineup.
Kamran Khan. Remember him? 2009.
Definitely, that action is too tough to forget, Abhishek.
Picked out of nowhere. Instant star. Yusuf Pathan.
Ravindra Jadeja for the
Ravindra Jadeja. He made stars out of these cricketers.
yeah, and just that sort of culture is still highlighted in how
Remember, he
Rajasthan
made
Royals
stars out of
believe in the
Indian
Indians.
cricketers, not Australian cricketers. He made stars out of Indian cricketers.
Yeah,
He
and
was the one.
perhaps it's
Ravindra Jadeja, I think, bowled about 2-3 overs in the entire tournament. 16 matches? 2 overs or 3 overs. So 14, 12 or 18 balls or something like that. Maybe even less than that. He played he played Jadeja as a specialist batter. That is what India are doing right now. decades after, over a decade after war.
True. True. And it's tough, probably easy for someone to say that the game had come, a lot forward in terms of how you can access someone in terms of their skill, how you can identify that. But it's difficult for an Australian player to identify that skill out of someone who's just come up playing the Under-19 World Cup in India, an Indian player.
And he
It's
identified him. He called him a rock star. I think he called Jadeja a rock star. I think in very early stages of the tournament.
true. Did keep persisting on the fact that he's going to be a big
Yes,
player for India,
yes, yes.
and those really are true captaincy qualities that need to be talked about. We have a comment here from
Not
Amit,
only captain, he was also the coach. Remember?
mentor.
Yep.
Amit, it's actually something that we really wanted to talk about today. There's nothing bigger than talking about a player who you identify the sport with. Amit has also shared his favorite highlight of Warne's career that you just talked about, Abhishek, that 99 semi-final ball to Gibbs.
Yes, I think if you see Warren, see, we have seen Warren bowl those special balls. This was that was one of Warren's best balls. But even more than that, even when Warren bowled Gibbs, his celebrations, Australia were out of the match. Warren's celebrations, Warren's body language suddenly changed the entire body language of the team. It's impossible to explain in words unless you actually see it live. Even watching the highlights won't do it. The entire thing changed. The entire atmosphere changed with that one dismissal. Warne took 3 wickets.
True.
He had to be taken off because I think War kept a couple of overs for the end, and he came back and took another wicket. So, but those 2 balls, not only the ball that got Gibbs, also the one that got Kirsten, a special ball because Kirsten went for a shot and the ball. Kirsten could probably have kept it out, but the ball turned again viciously.
Yeah.
I remember he once, sledged Ganguly out. So I think this was in Adelaide, right? In the Adelaide test of
2004?
No, of 2000. I think 2004 there was no Warne. So I'm not sure whether it was this one, the Adelaide test of no, this was 99 when India toured Australia. So in Australia were winning, and then Tendulkar and Ganguly were batting together. Ganguly was playing very defensively because he was blocking even the half volleys. Warne bowled a couple of half volleys. I don't know whether they were deliberate. Ganguly blocked even them. He was taking no risks. He was focused on keeping the wicket intact. So Warne moved up towards Ganguly and said, "People have come to see the other man bat, not you block. Let him. You try to play some shots, entertain the people." Ganguly tried to go for a big hit and was stumped. So he could do things like that.
Yeah. There are always these special things about these big players. Even in his action, if you believe, there was a sort of pause before he went on and pulled that delivery. And there was just so much of anticipation around his action. Every time he would get that ball and come in to bowl important wells during the game.
When he changed the field, I actually saw this at the venue at Eden Gardens. When he changed the field, everything stopped. He made sure every person on the ground would see that the field was being changed. Everything was a spectacle. I mean, that man was special. There were 11 fielders, 2 batters on the ground, and you would notice that one man. Even if the batter was a Tendulkar or a Lara, you would notice Shane Warne if he was bowling, even if he was not bowling sometimes. There was something about him, difficult to explain. Another story is, I think this was about Andrew Jones. So before, I think the umpire was Steve Dunn. So Warne, before bowling a ball, he smiled at Dunn and said, "Okay, this is the one." And the next ball, I think, was a flipper, and Jones was LBW.
Wow.
So
So he did it quite often. It wasn't like he did it on 1 or 2 occasions. It was throughout his careers that he would give you these box office moments.
Also, another Robert Croft hits him for a 6, and he was. They were showing the replay on the giant screen. So Robert Croft was happy watching that he had hit Warne for a 6. And Warne tells Croft, "Okay, don't worry, mate. You can see that again in a couple of minutes." So Robert Croft saw it again in a couple of minutes in the dressing room.
We have something from Sachin Kamath here. Yeah, he has emphasized on how one used to come with Indian youngsters to press conferences in IPL. Rajasthan
Of
Royals,
course,
Westerners.
just think of the number of Indian youngsters he brought into limelight. Munaf Patel, Siddharth Trivedi. We discussed Jadeja. We discussed Asnotkar. We discussed Yusuf. We discussed Kamran. Siddharth Trivedi. Munaf. I mean, you just name them. Who were there in the? I mean, the only other senior cricketer was probably Graham Smith. That was it. That was the team. That was the Rajasthan Royals that beat star-studded sides to win the first season. They were unbeatable at home for a long time.
They were top of the table, if I believe correctly, by the end of the league stage as well.
Yes. I think of the 14 league matches, they won 12, if I am right.
Yeah. I think you are. But at the beginning of it, they were expected to, be one of those sides that would end at the bottom of the table.
I think again, if my memory serves correctly, Rajasthan Royals actually had to pay a fine because they had paid too less at the auctions.
All these things now make for an incredible story. That is the season of 2008 for Rajasthan Royals under Shane Warne's captaincy. But yes, too many memories to talk about the legend. And as we have already mentioned in our live early on, that it's a void that the world of cricket won't be able to ever fill. These are once in a century kind of players, just as the deliveries that they bowl. And I think cricket will go on, Abhishek. We know that cricket won't stop, but it won't feel the same tomorrow or for the days to come without Shane.
Just 12 hours before the news broke, he had tweeted about Rodney Marsh. I still can't believe it. See, Marsh was not from my generation. Warne is my generation. He's slightly older, but he is my generation. I grew up watching him. In the 90s, were all about Shane Warne. I would go to find a house with a cable TV to watch Warne bowl when Australia played. Later, I would wake up, set my alarm at 5, and I would know that, Australia are bowling, so it's okay if I sleep until 5:40, 5:45 because Warne won't come on, because the fast bowlers will bowl until then, and okay, I can skip that. I can catch up on some sleep. But Warne, I can't skip.
I think those are the words which are fitting enough to serve as a tribute for the legend that Shane Warne was, and our deepest condolences with his friend, his family, and his fans. It is indeed a sad day for the world of cricket, and we just can thank Shane Warne for all the memories that he gave us, and the memories that will stay with us for a really long time. Thank you, Abhishekda, for doing this. It's been a difficult day. I know it is difficult for you given the stories that you have just shared with us. But thank you so much. It means a lot to us.
Thank you.